You're listening to Around Comics. 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 You're listening to Around Comics.
From Chicago and Oak Park and Milwaukee and all over the globe of the Midwest, you're listening to Around Comics, the comic book podcast, where we talk about everything in and around the world of comics. I am Brian Salazar, and with me, as always, is Christopher Eastman. How are you, Chris?
Good. Hello. Hola. ¿Cómo está? Muy bien.
Oh, I can't hear you all of a sudden. What happened?
No. Yes, no?
Your mic's off. I mean, it's very quiet.
Oh, I'll turn it up.
I don't know.
Closer.
And then there's Tom. Hi, tired Tom.
Hi. Tired. I'm just tired.
Tom's kids are beating him down.
Yeah.
Chris, I think something happened with your mic. You turned it off or something. Because it's not a volume thing. It's like
Anything? Yes?
No?
I hear it, Chris.
You do?
Yeah.
Well, that's weird. Huh. I mean, I can kind of hear him. How about now? Try again.
StreamYard had me all goofed
There we
up.
go.
Is that better?
Yes.
I'm strong.
Powerful.
Powerful stream.
Good. Sorry about that.
Powerful stream.
Hi.
It's very important at this age is to have a powerful stream.
Yes. Yeah.
Have power issues.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the powerful stream usually starts about like 3 o'clock in the morning.
We're so old.
Depends on how much tea. See, I'm getting old because I'm curling up with a nice cup of tea. I was telling Sal beforehand, Marta and I went out. It's the last weekend of the Traveling Beer Garden, which is a 2020 thing, I think. So we have the Traveling Socially Distanced Beer Garden, which goes around to different parks around Milwaukee. It's actually been a nice way to get a tour of the city parks and that kind of stuff. But it was so cold today. I had like a beer and like half a White Claw and came home. It's like, I'm going to put some tea on. Summer is over.
Have you tried the Trulies?
The which ones?
The Truly lemonade. They're lemonade and sparkling water with booze in them.
No.
They're pretty tasty.
And accidentally drink like 12 of them.
Yes, you can definitely down.
Sounds dangerous.
Yeah. They're pretty good, though. I will. If you like the White Claws, I think you'll like a Truly as well.
Okay. I don't think I actually like the White Claws.
No. You just drink them.
It was the first time because we were going to the park and Marta doesn't drink beer anymore. She's a wine drinker and she'll have liquor from time to time. And I was like, oh, you know what? I'll pick up this White Claw variety pack and Marta might like some of that. And yeah, neither one of us are fans. So we've got like 10 White Claws in the garage refrigerator that will probably be there forever.
See, I drink sparkling water like all the time.
LaCroix? Yeah, we drink LaCroix all the time.
So I kind of like the White Claw, but
yeah,
the Trulies have a little more flavor. The lemonade ones have a tiny bit of sugar, like it's like 2 carbs or something.
Yeah,
it's not bad, but they're much more flavorful.
Yeah, it's like I want to taste the booze, It's anyway. It's Sal's pick for the book of the month-ish, and I believe that we are all read up on it.
I did. I read it before, but I read it.
Yeah.
So I once I got into the beginning of it, I realized, oh yeah, I've read this too. And but it had been, I think, when it came out. So Sal's pick was Starlight Volume One, which I think there is only one volume. It's from Mike Mignola and Parlov. And yeah, it's your pick, Sal. So why don't you start us off?
Sure. I read this when it first came out in single issues, and you know, the thing I liked about it a lot. It's not a, and I think I alluded to this when we first talked about the book. Is it has a little bit of the feel of like what Tom King and Mitch are doing with Strange Adventures, where it's sort of taking the idea of a this hero that travels to another world, and the John Carter of Mars kind of prototype, and telling the story about him after that, what happens to him when he comes back home after he saved the planet, and comes back home and sort of just grows up and grows old, and he becomes an old man. And it's not, but
with really dickish kids.
With
kids are assholes.
I mean, I think, but I think as you read the book, though, well, I'll get to that part, but it's not like the difference between this and say, Strange Adventures is that it's not delving into the postmodern. It's not taking like a postmodern look at it necessarily, and examining like the Lawrence of Arabia kind of thing. Where the white knight hero going to a different culture and being the savior. It's not examining it from that perspective, and it's not I wouldn't say that this is necessarily a deep book in any way, but I feel like it's a really elegant story. Like, it's very simple. It's very clean. It's straightforward, and there's some touching moments in it, and it's exciting adventure and that kind of thing. And I liked it a lot just for the simplicity of it. But I think, like you talked about the kids, and yeah, there's more, like you see where, well, just to give people, if you haven't read the book, a little idea of what the story is about, is there's this guy, Duke McQueen, and he, at one point in his life when he was a young man, traveled to this faraway planet, and he became the savior of this planet and basically rescued them, and was honored and memorialized, and they built statues for him. And then he came home, and he grew up, and he became an old man, and now he's this old guy with kids, and he had this wife that he loved very much. They had this wonderful marriage and life together, but she dies of cancer. And now he's just sort of alone, and his glory years are behind him, and his kids aren't sure what to do with him now, because they have their own lives, and they don't really want to be stuck necessarily taking care of their father, which is understandable in some ways. And I think also what I got from it a little bit was the idea that he was so sort of stuck in the past, not just with his glory days on this planet being a savior, while that's a big part of it, but also, he's lost his companion, his wife, and it's sort of this thing that he doesn't know how to get past. He doesn't know how to get beyond it and move on.
He is kind of waiting to die. How you felt.
He's not, he's not that old. Like, he's probably he's like 62, I think. So he's not like he's in his 80s, and he's a very physically fit 52 year old guy, but he just, like, because he's stuck in the past, I don't think he has much of a relationship with his kids. So while you say he's got dick kids, I think it's a two-way street. When I've recently kind of gone through something with an older, not a parent, but my uncle passed away this year, and up until he had died, it was my sister and I and my other sisters and siblings were sort of taking care of him and trying to figure out what to do with him and how to best, make him happy in his last years of his life. But at the same time, it's like we have our lives. We have, I have kids and my family and my house, and I'm here. And it's a very difficult thing when you're in that situation. I didn't go through it with my parents. They had both passed away, relatively quickly. By comparison, it wasn't like a long drawn out thing where we had to, and they were both very able to take care of themselves up until their death. So I didn't go through that with them, but I went through it with my uncle to some degree. And so it's like you're trying to figure out like how do you best, take care of this person, but you're in this situation where it's a very inconvenient thing. It's a very difficult thing to deal with when you're trying to raise kids and you have a job and that kind of stuff. So I can understand to some degree, but I also think a lot of times when we get older, we get less connected to our kids sometimes and to the people around us. And I think that was part of the story here was that he was so stuck in his past that he didn't have a relationship with his kids because he couldn't relate to them, or they didn't understand him. He was this kind of heroic character at one point, but now he's just this old guy who is grieving his wife and doesn't know how to get past it. So I think that was part of the story that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
And then, so what happens then is these young revolutionaries that grew up idolizing him on this planet that he saved and sort of idolizing Americana life and those kind of things. They now need his help, so they come and get him. And get him to come back to the planet and be the savior again. He's not sure if he's up to the task.
Very Danny Glover, Lethal Weapon.
But he does go and he fights the bad guys once again. But it's a learning process. Like he's learning how to deal with like this young group of kids that he doesn't quite understand. And while they sort of idolize him, some of them do. Some of them think it's like, why is this guy here? And it's that generation gap thing. It's a very, common sort of thing. And I think part of it is like him learning that he can still be valuable. He can still have a relationship. And at the end of it, you kind of see that. You see him sort of repair his relationship and get beyond this. And while he has sort of one more glory day, one more day in the sun, he also sort of recognizes the fact like his life's not over just because maybe his adventuring days are over. Like there's another part of his life, the family that he's created, and he can't just like ignore that because he's no longer a hero. And that's what I kind of liked about it. I enjoyed it as an old guy myself. I kind of really you don't really see too many stories in comics about that kind of person, you know what I mean? Like an older sort of hero that is still trying to figure out what to do with their life at 62, which isn't that old, you know what I mean? Like you still have a lot of life in you. It's just sort of how you decide, to live it.
Sure. And it was him being kind of thrust back into that role of being a hero, energizes him and gives him, this, because he looks and acts and feels old at the beginning of this series, and by the time he's a action hero again, it's like he has all this life kind of just like pushed back into him. But the idea and the theme that I kind of kept coming back to is that he was the Air Force pilot, right? Or was it astronaut?
I think he was an astronaut.
He was an astronaut. So astronaut disappears, and you can imagine that the entire world is aware of his disappearance, and then he comes back much later, and they're like, oh, Duke, where have you been? He's like, oh, I was off saving this entire civilization. And they're like, okay, he's lost his mind, and nobody believes him, including his family. His wife says that she does, and you think that she might, but she might not, but she loves him, and his kids seem really sketchy about it. And so he's like, not, I mean, he is a global hero of this freed civilization, and he comes back as what would be an honored astronaut, and no one believes him, so he has to live the rest of his life on Earth as kind of a laughing stock. And then the switch gets flipped, and all of a sudden he's this revered global treasure again. and I thought that was neat how Miller works that in, and I mean, he does heroic stuff, but it's really his reputation and his ability to inspire people around him is what ends up being how he comes back and wins this conflict.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it. Like, he realizes, like, he doesn't have to necessarily be the same man he was once. It's his legacy that is still important. You know, like what he's left behind, what he did to inspire the people of this planet, the young people of this planet, that grew up with his stories and are inspired by his courage and bravery and heroics and all that kind of thing. It's like, I think he kind of realized, like, oh, I did do something important. I am still, relevant. And I think that's a very common thing with people as they age. What is my legacy? What I left behind? I think it's something anyone that gets old probably starts to think about.
You guys are old. I'm young.
I was waiting for a barb from Tom.
No,
that was
I'm
the
old.
pregnant pause there.
I feel it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I always admire how Miller is able to make things so digestible. As a 6-issue story, it's always just like a easy, pleasurable read with him, and with the artists doing such a great job of telling the story and hitting the emotional notes. But it's like I kind of flew through it, and it was quite pleasurable.
Yeah. Well, the thing that you always get with Miller is that he's going to stick a landing. I don't know if I've ever read a Mark Miller story where I didn't feel like it had a very satisfying ending. He really knows.
Even Wanted?
Huh?
Even Wanted? I don't think Wanted had a very satisfying ending for most people.
Well, I was fine with it. I mean, that was kind of his. He was just giving people the middle finger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah. Well, he stuck the landing the way he wanted to there, but Miller knows how to tell a complete story. It's and this one, you could see a Starlight too. He always knows how to still tell a complete story, but also leave it where there could easily be a sequel.
Exactly. Gotta leave yourself open to it, but it's like a nice chunk. It's a beginning, middle, and end. And it's like, oh, that's nice.
Yes.
I think like beginning comic book writers should look at the pacing of this 6 issues as an example of, like, this is how you tell a clean story. Like, this is extremely well paced. Like the beats are all there. It's almost like perfect in the way that he lays it out. And I was shocked after I read it the first time of, like, oh, this is going to absolutely be a movie, or you know what I mean? Like, it's perfectly written for a script. I mean, almost a movie script already. I think they are. Aren't they making something on Netflix of it? I think.
I think so. It seems like there's a lot of stuff that Miller is involved with. I mean, he's got that exclusive. What is it? First look that Netflix has for all of his stuff.
Yeah, I don't know what the details of the deal are, but yeah, I think they certainly own the rights to anything that he's done for Miller World.
I know when he did like Chrononauts, it has a Netflix tab on it. So,
well, I think they just bought the whole Miller World. Like, they own it.
Yeah, it's what was this? What was who published Starlight?
It's Image.
Is it Image? Okay.
Yeah.
Is that what is he still printing his Miller World stuff through Image? Is that the?
I believe so. Yeah, it's still all Image.
Okay, it's well, you mentioned Wanted. That was Top Cow.
Yeah.
That was a Top Cow book. I remember that.
Can we? I do want to. I have a sort of a personal note on this book. Interestingly enough. I want to point out how amazing Goran Parlov is.
Oh yeah.
artist.
He's one of my favorite Punisher artists of all time.
Oh yeah. But I think this is even like better stuff than the. I mean, as much as I love his Punisher stuff, like because he's able to kind of stretch his legs.
Oh, he gets to go cosmic with this and draw, cool retro like 50s sci-fi, which is who wouldn't want to do that?
But when this came out originally, I actually tweeted at him a question, which I didn't, really expect him to answer, but he did, and because when I read it, I'm like, man, it almost looks like he did no sketching for this art. Like it was just, I got the feeling like it just flowed out of his pencil without any kind of underdrawing or anything. I asked him, like, are your pencils as effortless as they look? Like they look like you are able to just sit there and draw a page without even thinking about it. Like it just like flows out of your. And he tweeted back at me and he showed me a bunch of the pencils, and it was like there was like no underdrawing to it. It was almost identical to what you see on the page, like every page. Just like, oh my god, it's amazing how good he is. I don't
awesome.
like that many people talk about his stuff. But he's
go back to that page where Duke is jumping off that car. I mean, look how much energy are in those panels.
And if you go back to, I was going to try and pull up the tweets that he sent me because it was really interesting to see the pencil stuff. But if you go back and search Twitter for like my name and his name together in a tweet, you'll find them, and they're really like beautiful pencil where it's just like other than like the black, it's all right there in the pencils, and there's almost no like sketch or underdrawing to it. It's like he just is able to go, well, this is what I'm going to draw, and he just does it. And there's no, like there's no work to it. It's ridiculous. It's sickening how good he is.
Yeah, has he been working on anything recently?
I don't know. I haven't seen anything from him in a little while. I'm not sure what he's
because he's Eastern European, I believe, right?
Yeah, Polish, I want to say. Croatian. I'm sorry, Croatian. Yeah. He's not a young man either. He's actually older than me.
Oh, he was doing Punisher Max in the early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
So he's one of those. He's one of those. It's like whenever Marvel would put out the Young Guns, a guy who had been working in the industry for like 15 years. Young Gun, Goran Parlov.
Oh, it looks like Starlight is going to be an animated film from Netflix.
Cool. Well, hopefully he's really involved then, and they base everything on his designs.
Yeah, it looks like he may be. I don't know. Oh, maybe not. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I'm just looking at his Twitter feed right now. So there's. Yeah, I don't know what he's working on lately, but yeah, I can't get enough of his stuff. He has something about like the way, like he gives volume to his characters. I really like the structure that he's able to give his characters in a very simple way. Like he doesn't do a whole lot of line work. It's very, simple and elegant, but he does great volume in those characters. I think, like in the bodies and muscles and all the stuff that he does. And, great.
All of his characters look poofy. Yeah,
I like Poofy.
Well, that's why I always liked his Frank Castle, because it looked like a 40-something. Even like early 50s grizzled Vietnam vet. He looked jowly and kind of,
he looked like a guy that would kill a bunch of people with his
head. He looked rough. He looked like a guy who had been, run hard and hung up wet. And I always liked his Punisher looked, grizzled, without being gritty, like a lot of artists would, kind of overdo that. His Punisher just looked weathered. But whenever one of the things that
bad guy, remember the bad guy in the Punisher stuff, the dude with the like bald head and huge like torso.
Oh yes,
what was his name? I can't remember his name.
Oh, you're gonna kill me.
He was a great villain for Punisher.
That whole that whole Ennis Parlov run, and there were a few artists on that Punisher Max run that I look back now and it's like, oh yeah, him. It's like Leonardo Fernandez, who did the Old Guard. He did some of those Punisher Max arcs.
Well, Miller's like one of those dudes also that has such a great eye for talent. You know, like
oh yeah,
he's like Remender. You know, like Remender's one of the guys that, however he does it, like that dude has worked with some amazing artists over the years. Like he just continues to seemingly find great artists to work with, and but Miller does that too. Like he seems to has a really good eye for talent.
yeah. You know, I was thinking one of my other like 1950s, you know, like future retro comics, like Tom Strong. You know, I love that book. You know, how much different is Starlight if Chris Sprouse does the art?
That's interesting. Yeah. Sprouse is. I don't think he gets the same power necessarily.
Yeah.
That Parlov gives his characters. You know, like. But it's an interesting.
Yeah, it just show you how important the art is. I think a Chris Sprouse drawn Starlight would have been awesome, but you know, to pick Goran Parlov, who I think at that point was probably, you know, not known for, you know, sci-fi, was an interesting choice, and it worked awesome.
It did. I also love the idea of like how the young kids on the planet really like were into 50s Americana. Like, they were like greasers and they had like hot rods and wore leather jackets and Elvis hair, and it was like, oh, that's kind of an interesting, you know, sort of like Cold War era throwback, you know, to throw in there.
Even though they were getting like 90s and maybe even like early 2000s transmissions from Earth, you know, because the guy's asking about Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, and so they're getting like modern stuff, but yeah, the whole like retro thing was, yeah.
But wasn't there a big like? I want to say like in Japan, like wasn't there a big thing at one point like the Japanese youth was like huge into like greaser?
I think it still is, probably.
Is it?
Yeah, I think there's, you know, but I mean there's always something
Rockabilly.
like that in Japan. Yeah, the Japanese greasers, and yeah, they had like, you know, girls wear
want it to be true. Like I just want to think that there's a bunch of like Japanese street gangs running around. You know?
No, but like, yeah, they'd have like girls wearing poodle skirts, and and bars that were dedicated to like 1950s Americana. Which is kind of weird if you think about it. It's like, you know, we had just dropped the bomb on them, you know.
Well, they don't remember that. Come on, man.
Don't bring it up.
Don't spoil their fun, you know.
Yeah, as they were rebuilding. But yeah, it's what I see. It's like now they I saw like there's one bar in it's Japan, or I think it's Japan, but it's they recreated Central Perk, and it's all like Friends themed.
Oh God! Oh no!
yeah, they're taking the best of us, Sal.
The only good Friends recreation is when Always Sunny in Philadelphia did it. That's the
I have not seen that.
Oh. I started watching. I got like in a black hole on YouTube of watching outtakes of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia season.
I saw that they were posting those. There's that many of them?
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, it's just bloopers and
okay.
You know, they're doing a lot of ad libbing and sort of just, you know, those guys are very spontaneous. Spontaneous. Thank you.
There you go.
And I think they sort of go, you know, wing it a lot with stuff and try.
Charlie Day is awesome.
Yeah, really funny.
Yeah,
but I also it was an interesting interview. I don't know why I'm always in sunny in Philadelphia here, but the guy who plays the weirdo, the one weirdo family. I can't think of the name.
Oh, the McBoyles. The
The
McBoyle.
McBoyle, yeah.
Yeah.
So he was like a friend of Charlie Day. They lived together, and they were both like young actors.
Oh, is this the guy who played the in Westworld? He was the young version of the man in the black hat. Yes. Yeah, and he was on Psych. I loved him on Psych.
He's a really good actor.
Oh, he's great. Yeah,
he plays that absolutely insane, hilarious McBoyle character who is just so weird and creepy and just amazing. And so they were talking to him about where that character came from and stuff, and how did he? And he's like, well, when I lived with Charlie, we would just start filming stuff for ourselves. Like we would just make videos and write stuff to do, just to act. Just to do stuff, you know what I mean? Like we weren't doing any work, we weren't doing anything. Like we would just make our own videos to make our friends laugh. And he's like, and I knew pretty quickly, like Charlie, I'm never gonna be this sort of frantic, hilarious comedy that Charlie does. He's molten lava, like he's
wild card, bitches.
Yeah, you know what I mean? He's like, I knew I was never gonna be able to compete with that. But I knew I could be weirder than him. Like he would make these weird characters. And then when they started Sunny, Charlie came and like, "Hey man, I want you to do one of your weird characters on Always Sunny." He's like, "Yeah, let's do it."
I may not be as funny or clever, but I can be uncomfortable.
Yeah. But they asked him about do you ever? He's like a classically trained actor, and he's obviously a very good actor.
Yeah.
And they're like, are you ever frustrated because so many people think of you as that character? He's like, no. He's like, I nailed it. It's like if that many people react to that character, then I did it right. Like that's what I was. And I'm like, that's an awesome answer. Like don't get too serious about it when But that character is probably my favorite on that show.
Oh,
yeah.
Anyway,
back to.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of TV and retro and all of that stuff, I fell down the Cobra Kai rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It is so. I'm wrapping up season 1. It is so good.
I don't think they could have done a better job with it. I don't think they could have taken it and kept the sort of cheesy heart of the original series, and simultaneously they kind of make fun of it. But also, they still nailed the sort of, what you liked of that movie.
It is so shockingly good. It's
so
shockingly good.
He's so. I just love that he's an absolute caveman, just dick, completely inappropriate, and politically incorrect asshole, but trying to be better. He's
doing good in spite of himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I love it, and it's it's a Romeo and Juliet story with Miguel and Sam LaRusso, and that they actually were able to turn Daniel kind of into the bad guy for a little while was pretty brilliant.
Sure. Oh, wait till season 2, man! You don't even know season 2 will break your heart. There's a season 2. They do it so well of you think these guys are finally going to
reconcile. Yeah.
And they break your heart with it. It's just oh no.
I get it.
I love the scene where Johnny finds out that Miguel is dating Daniel's daughter, and he's like, "Sit down, let me tell you about the LaRussos." And you get the whole Karate Kid movie from Johnny's perspective.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, Daniel was really a dick.
Tortured me in high school.
The guy's karate, his karate teacher beat up me and my friends, and it was awful.
It's old guy showed up and beat the shit out of a bunch of high schoolers.
old dude and master martial arts.
Oh yeah, it's so just like perfect. You're talking about back to Starlight, pacing and just when you experience something and you're just like it's right. It's almost like a warm bath. It just everything is right about it. That's how Cobra Kai is, and Starlight. So we'll go back to that before we move on. One of the things. And it goes with the pacing, and I know that you can't fit everything in, but one of the things I wish I had learned more about, or he was able to expound on, was this whole Kingfisher family. You see little snippets of them because there's like this ruling class family over this entire planet, and they seem like just the worst, most horrible douchebaggy people ever, and I wanted to see and learn more about them. But he was so good about keeping on point with the story. I think that if this ever became like a series and not a Netflix movie, I think that's where your space to expand is in that whole Kingfisher family.
Yeah, for sure. You could see that happening in a series, to try and fill in more episodes, that kind of thing. But I think sometimes you I don't know. I think sometimes that's a mistake too, because you got like with this, it's like he gives you just enough. It's the same thing like with his wife.
Mm-hmm.
Like his wife is barely in the book, but he does such a great job of there's that scene. I don't know if you remember the scene in the beginning of the first issue where they're out to dinner and they see this young couple and she's sort of like, oh, that's so sweet, and then she buys them their dinner and they leave. And it's like that little perfect moment of like you instantly fall in love with her as a character because she's so sweet and kind, and then she dies.
Yeah, in like 4 or 5 frames.
Yeah, but that's how good of writing. That's good writing. You know what I mean? Like you don't need any more.
And then from the visual storytelling side, then at the end of the story where all of the family is together and everyone's reconciled, and it's her portrait, above the mantle in the dining room, so she's there too.
Or even her death. I mean, it's one scene where it goes from that to her going, is this a lump?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's her funeral. And you don't need any more information than that. You know what I mean? Like you understand it completely just from those like 2 scenes.
It's really, really well done comic book storytelling.
Yes, absolutely. It is that's what I mean. Like it's not like some deep dive, some sort of examination of comics. It's not some sort of
they didn't have to have an issue of her going to the cardiologist.
It's a well drawn, well paced, well written character story that also has a bunch of aliens and shit in it. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
But it's just simple and elegant. It's and you don't see enough of that, I think. You don't see enough just sort of simply elegant stories. Everybody kind of gets
what was
too deep into their own.
You would point Sentient by Jeff Lemire, and I forget the that was another example of just elegant storytelling, and it's out there. And I think
storytelling, like simple and tell you everything. I mean, I really love like his cover work because his covers told you a story, before you ever opened the book. And I really appreciate that kind of stuff now. Like as much as it's like I appreciate other stuff too. Obviously, it's not like everything doesn't have to be that way. But I think like a lot of writers, there's a book I've been reading that's been coming out called "That Texas Blood," and I believe the artist is Jacob Phillips, who I believe is Sean Phillips' son.
Oh, really?
I believe so because I believe that's Sean Phillips' son, and the art looks sort of Sean Phillips-ish, and the book is very much a Brubaker Phillips type.
Sean Phillips, did he color Pulp?
No, his son. I believe his son did.
Yeah, that's what I
Son has
meant.
been doing the coloring on all their stuff for a while now, I think.
Jacob Phillips.
There you go. But this is his own book, and it's a very Brubaker Phillips type of book. It's set in Texas, and it's a murder and crime written kind of thing, and it's good, but it's, the flaw in it, if there is one, is the writing is a little heavy-handed. It's a little too. It's trying to be too.
It was a dark and stormy night.
A little bit to it. It's not bad. It's not. It's a good book. I've enjoyed it so far. But there's a little bit of that to it, and you can kind of see, like, yeah, this is a writer that's not real confident yet. Like, just doesn't have the confidence to leave that kind of stuff out, and let the audience figure out the story from a more simplistic, telling, and flip that with like this, where it's like, this is a masterful writer who is incredibly confident and probably has been his entire life. Like, you know what I mean? Like, Miller's always been confident, but like, you can just see it. Like, he's not worried about anyone not getting this. You're gonna get it. He knows you're gonna get it. He's done it a million times, and it's just, that's the difference of like someone who is more willing to leave stuff out.
Yeah. It's amazing the amount of work that he's put together. But I mean, you think about it, Miller's been in the end. I mean, we're going on 30 years now.
You gotta start, like putting him on lists of, the great comic book writers out there for sure.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You're going on a list.
He's going. You're on a list, Mark Miller. You're on my list, buddy.
You're on a list now.
Yeah. And like stuff that's been optioned and deals and whatnot, dude. Mark Miller has made some bank.
Oh yeah, I mean, is there a more like? Has anyone made more money than him?
Not in the last 20 years, I don't think.
Like, I don't know.
Making it rain.
He is, yeah. He is from Scotland, so there's a lot of rain. So is he a Glaswegian, I believe?
I no idea.
Well, yeah, I think. Well, he was. I don't want to say protege, but that was kind of the thing. Is that he and Morrison were. He kind of like, whenever he first came onto the scene, it was, so this is Grant Morrison's protege, and I think they. I don't know if they had a falling out, but that relationship didn't. I don't think it lasted really long, but. I think Morrison kind of had something to do with getting him into the industry. I may be wrong, but I seem to recall that.
It's Chris's drama corner.
It's the three. It was
Who's
Morrison.
got beef with who?
It was Morrison and Quietly and Miller. We're all kind of in that Glasgow, Scotland scene. So.
Welcome to the beef corner. Come get yourself 5 minutes of beef as we talk about what comic creators don't like each other.
We could.
We'd probably have a much more viewed YouTube page if we did that on a weekly basis. Just make up.
If you're a comic creator, you can anonymously send in something that we'll read about another creator.
It's not around comics anymore. It's CMZ.
Yeah. Tell me more.
We'll start with Mike Mignola having beef with all of his fans.
with everyone. Yeah.
Oh,
Did you see that, Chris? Did you see the Mignola?
No, the last thing I heard about Mignola was with the Scott Alley brouhaha.
He so Mignola posted a pencil sketch of Hellboy wearing a Biden Harris T-shirt, 2020, and it said vote, and he's wearing a mask, and the list of dummies that were trying to tell Mike should or do with Hellboy, like, you shouldn't do that with Hellboy. He wouldn't do that.
What do you mean he wouldn't do that?
He invented him.
I got pause because I bought a T-shirt for this exact reason. I'm gonna go get it. So
I was laughing my ass off reading the thread of like idiot, and I especially love the complete dorks that like have some shitty fucking GoFundMe comic book they're working on. I think that somehow equates to them, being justified in telling one of the great artists.
This thing you made, which is so unique and has been so successful, I'm going to tell you exactly how you should do it.
Yeah, I love it. It's just like, come on, are you like how fucking delusional and narcissistic do you have to be?
It's like, fuck off.
And I mean, like, legitimately try and explain yourself of why Hellboy would never do that. He wouldn't be political. Like, these are the same idiots. These are the same idiots that would like held Jack Kirby, a Jew who
what
fought in World War II.
Why would you punch Hitler?
Yeah.
I just walked in and I heard Sal go a Jew, and I was like, what happened?
Captain America, just another member of the intolerant left.
Do you guys read this guy's comics?
I think I've seen that before. Yeah,
I'm not familiar.
His comics are awesome. It's what Jacob Pyle or Jonathan Pyle.
Oh my god, I just love it when people see like a sketch of Hellboy wearing a T-shirt and it just like causes them this like the anger to well up inside of them. Like you don't have obviously.
My anger is
like,
real,
dude. You need like an outlet. Like a real life thing.
You need something in your fucking life.
Yeah.
You moron.
It's like, I'm so angry about this. Character.
I mean, whatever, like politically, whatever you believe in or root for or whatever, but it's like the idea of like saying Hellboy shouldn't be political. It's like, dude, he punches Nazis constantly. Like that's his whole.
Yeah,
really
he works for the government.
It's one of my favorite. I use a Hellboy quote all the time. Whenever there's a Nazi on TV, I'm always just like, Nazis. Man, those guys were everywhere.
They're the bad guys.
Yes. Where did we lose sight that they're the bad guys?
We use them all the time because we're like, oh, that's obviously a bad guy.
I mean,
which God, now we're going full circle. The It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia episode where they found someone's grandfather was a Nazi, and they found the Nazi uniform.
That's a great episode. That is such a great episode.
It was Charlie and Frank that found the uniform, right?
Yeah. I think Charlie and Frank or Charlie and Mac. I thought it was Charlie and Mac because weren't they? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, it's because Charlie and Frank were always hanging out together. So
I just was amazed by the amount of people that were just like earnestly trying to explain to Mike Mignola on Twitter, how he was wrong, his own creation.
Yes,
like I can understand. Somebody did that. Like if some, if even if like Jim Lee did that with Batman. You know what I mean? Like, I could almost understand the argument in the sense of like, that's not your character. You didn't. But it's like, no one owns Hellboy other than it would not exist. It would not, like, that character. Everything that character has ever done has been under the strict guidance of one human being. On the planet, you cannot in any way tell him what he should or should not do with that character. Like, but you're right, though. It's the pain that it forces these morons to spout out of because they're just like, and I tweet, I'm like, I have some bad news for you Trump fans that are comic book readers. Most of the people who buy don't fucking want anything to do with it. They can keep your money and they can't afford to tell you to go.
I kind of that was kind of the message that Ted Cruz got about The Princess Bride last week, right?
It was like, fuck off.
Yeah, he was like, "No, this is my favorite movie,
No,
and it
we
should
don't
be
like
above
you."
politics." And they're all just like, "Fuck
No.
off." I loved it.
What I want to see next is I want to see like Drew Struzan draw a Darth Vader with a Trump shirt on, and then like the reaction to that.
Darth Vader would never do that.
Yeah, so it'll be like, what it'll really be is it'll be like Rorschach wearing a Trump T-shirt, and everyone will be like, yeah, it's right.
Yeah,
No one will know what to do.
Yeah,
Some people,
that will
will
really
be
tear
like,
people.
no, Rorschach, you're not supposed to like.
well, that's it. For a while, I was always like, how do you possibly read comic books for decades and come away with some of these sort of like I said, even not political, but just sort of like morally questionable ideas.
Yeah,
The X-Men. How can you read the X-Men and be either racist or anti-immigrant?
or be like the X-Men were never about politics, or
God.
not even politics, were never about racism.
No.
Because it's not political, right? It's like stuff like you shouldn't be racist. You shouldn't
talk about race in the X-Men.
Yeah. You shouldn't help people.
This is a comic book. This is Wolverine needs to go, kill somebody and fight Sentinels. Don't talk about race in comics.
Well, I
can't
mean,
believe Captain America has gotten political.
Well, we're talking about the same people that idolized Rorschach and saw that character as a hero. And wasn't it Alan Moore that like the one time that he ever went to San Diego and it freaked him out, and there were people that are just like, Rorschach is my favorite character, and he's just like, you need to get away from me, you crazy.
What was the thing
person.
What was the thing Alan Moore wrote in that last League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, like the fake letter from someone? I forgot what it was. I'm looking it up right now.
I don't remember.
I've got I'm bad League fan. I still need to sit down and read that entire series. I haven't done it yet.
Here it is. He wrote a fake letter. The letter reads, "Dear Alan Kev, as a middle-aged conservative incel sitting wedged between my keyboard, trolling Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez with my Batman t-shirt covered in Pringles, can I just ask with a straight face why you're leaving the comics business? Yours."
Oh God, I'm gonna miss him.
Well, that's it. That's what I mean. Like, I get, I mean, I can almost understand it in some sense, in some ways. I try and empathize with people, but it's like I said, like the idea of like reading comics about like, what do you think the bad guys are bad for? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why are they fighting the bad guys? Why do you think that they wanted to defeat the bad guys all these years, decades and decades of stories of these horrible villains? Like, although
Hydra isn't so bad.
they're
the bad guys.
There's some good people in the Legion of Doom. Like,
a lot of people that work for Hydra are perfectly good people.
Well, you say that, but how many villains have they turned into heroes in the last couple? I mean, shit, they made Juggernaut a good guy for a while.
I was just gonna say, I'm like, I kind of blame Stan Lee to some regard because his villains always were sympathetic, and it's like that, like, and you go to the Rorschach. I could get it. Like if you're sort of like a young, anarchist sort of angry teen, in the 80s and 90s, and you read Watchmen, I could maybe understand. I mean, as vile a character as Rorschach is, and as fucked up a person as he is, there are certain like things about him that I could see people.
He was a badass, and it was a cool costume.
And he had his own like he stood up for what he believed in. Whether or not it was right or wrong, he stood. Like he died for what he believed in. So I can understand to a certain degree. But like, at what point do you not get the fact that he's one? He was very abused, fucked up mentally.
Yeah, this is a broken human being.
Violent. Yeah. Like, this is a good guy. Can I tell you guys about? I had to explain at one point to someone very close to me that Starship Troopers was satire. Did I?
Really?
I'm not
really.
Yeah, I explained to someone after they used it as an example of maybe you shouldn't be allowed to vote unless you serve in the military.
Oh, you earn citizenship?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm like, you do understand that was satire, right?
Yeah.
The movie, it's supposed to be ridiculous.
Yeah.
I'm like,
it's like, if you're going to use the movie as an example, read the book first.
Well, no, that's not true, because the book is actually much more pro-war than the movie.
I mean, the movie's definitely like takes that idea and pushes it to a ridiculous level of like.
Yeah, that was
like.
he took that original story. If you read the book, it's much more militant and pro-military.
Which is kind of sort of. I mean, there's never a battle scene in the book.
Yeah.
No, but it doesn't have the look. I mean, it doesn't have the sort of anti-fascist.
No, not as much. It was. I mean, that book was really about Korea. It was the Korean War. So it's been a long time since I read Starship Troopers.
Well, we should probably move along. We have a
guest.
We do have a guest.
We got a guest, baby. Oh, there goes. Oh,
and Chris leaving. Right as.
I'd shut the door. Marta will yell down at me, Chris, shut the door. Because I yell.
Shut
All right.
the fucking door.
So am I introducing our guest?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Joining us now is the creator of how do you say it? I'm terrible. My Spanish is terrible. It's Mano del Destino. It's the wonderful Jason Gonzalez.
There he is.
Hey, how's it going,
Spanish
guys?
is terrible, dude. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, it's fine. What are you from the Midwest, right?
Hey, bud, how's it going?
Oh, living in Arizona during lockdown, so it's fantastic.
Well, it's a dry lockdown.
Yeah, exactly. I found out we're in like the top tier of states that are having a resurgence of tests for positive. So, number one,
Arizona.
Number one, baby.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that we're number one, but we're in the top tier for sure.
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, Wisconsin's not far behind you. Don't worry.
Oh, no, yeah. Oh, I saw the map today. It's bad. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I forgot you're out of Chicago now. How's Wisconsin life treating you?
I like Wisconsin more than I ever thought I would.
He's a Buck fan now. He's a Brewers fan.
Oh yeah, just drinking beer, eating sausage, cheese. We have cheese like 3 times a day. It's it's awesome. Milwaukee that's the big bummer out of all this COVID stuff, is that this was like going to be the summer of Milwaukee. I mean, the Bucks were probably, I think, a real good shot to win the NBA championship, and the Democratic National Convention, and we had the Summerfest there was going to be a real national spotlight on Milwaukee, and now that's not going to happen. So I guess the bright side of that is it's going to kind of remain one of America's hidden treasures, because Milwaukee's it's an awesome town. We really enjoy it.
I don't know. Yeah, I got to get out that far. I go to what's it called? Columbus, Ohio every year. Well, not this year, obviously, but I cut through that part of the country, but I never made it to Milwaukee.
Do you just go to Columbus for the comic book museum?
Well, we do CXC and SoulCon. So SoulCon is a black and brown creator convention, that happens like the day before. And then we moved to CXC for the 2 days of CXC. But as part of that, we have access to the Billy Ireland, and it's fantastic. Yeah.
It's neat, isn't it?
Everyone should go check that out.
If you're ever in Columbus, Ohio, go to the go to the Ireland Museum.
Columbus is cool too. It's like where punks go to retire. It's like a bunch of over 40 dudes wearing Dickies t-shirts.
My only problem with Columbus, there's no easy way to get there.
No, it's a shitty town to fly. That's why I drive. Well, part of why I drive.
Yeah, and even driving there, all roads lead to Columbus, but there's no direct route to Columbus. But
what I used to do some years is I would do New York and then do Columbus and then head home to Arizona. So it was a little easier, like kind of round trip circuit, I guess, to do. Yeah,
that's a drive.
Yeah, it was like 2.5, 3 weeks on the road. I'm a freelance artist. I can do that shit. I work for myself. I only do my own project.
Which I don't have my Born to Bonspiel shirt on. I should have worn that tonight. But I don't know if you realize it, but you are on the show every week.
Oh, am I?
Yes. So right over my shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if.
Hold on. I can see. Let me see if I can make this full screen. I can't make this full screen.
To get cheaper.
Oh, that Abe Sapien, right?
Is that what's going on here?
It's one of my favorite Abe Sapien drawings. Let's get the glare there.
Yeah.
But
very cool. Yeah, that doesn't suck as much as I thought it would have. As an artist, you love everything you do for 15 minutes. That was the best advice.
Later.
Yeah, and then all you see is your mistakes. That was the best advice I got in art school was, look, man, you're gonna love everything you do for 15 minutes. You either accept that or don't be an artist. So
yeah, and it's never done. Art is never done.
It's just abandoned.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. But I subscribe to the done is beautiful. That's like my mantra when I'm my years of advertising and working in graphic design. It's just like done is beautiful. That's the most beautiful thing you can. Yeah. Let's get it out of the world,
It's done. It's done when you invoice it.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus. That's part of the reason I got out of advertising is nothing's ever fucking done anymore. It's like people get like these, and fucking AEs will try to like manage you and be like, oh, it's due on Friday at like 5 o'clock, and so you like getting into work at 4 o'clock in the morning just to make your 5 o'clock PM deadline because it's crazy. And you get it out the door and you're ready to leave at 5, and then at 8 he's like, oh, we got some changes from the client. Like, I thought it was fucking due at 5. Like, I thought we had a hard deadline at 5.
Not really. Lied to me.
Yeah, no, I padded in some time so we could fuck around and I could have an opinion.
At 5, but my deadline is until 8.
Yeah, when I was creative director, I told my AEs flat out, like, don't ever manage me like that. Tell me what the hard deadline is and I'll fucking hit it. But if you ever tell me it's 2 days beforehand or some shit like that,
I'll kill you.
Yeah, I will make your job fucking
over.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a creative director, I guess technically I could have fired people. I don't know. I had some authority. I had a corner office and a secretary and a staff, which was nice. But yeah, man, Don Draper's job is not cool. I got the fuck out of there after six or 7 short years. I had to walk away.
Well, you
drink and sexually harass your.
I caught the tail end of the hookers and blow era advertising. Like I saw the very end of it, and then it became a whole different animal. Once everyone got Photoshop, it really fucked up how creative directors could function in an ad. Once like the clients learned a word like font or point size, like we were all fucked. So yeah.
It stopped being Mad Men and turned into, hey, can you put my son's head on this guy's body?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I learned early on that if a client slides over a napkin drawing, just do that. Like, don't bother trying to show them the better thing because they're never going to see the better thing.
I've had a client send me like a photoshopped, like a MS Paint for an ad. That I was just like, oh, thank you.
Yeah, we'll just run that. I'll just save this out as a JPEG, or I'll save it out as a.
I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, forget the education and years of experience. We're gonna run with your idea.
Yeah, funny. I thought spending 27 years in the ad profession made me a professional. It turns out I had to be the accountant at a movie theater, and that made me an expert. Fuck those people.
We had a CEO come to our department and start a conversation with, we're going to need you to lower your standards, which is just right what you want to hear.
Yeah. We worked for the king of make my logo bigger and what's all of this negative space? We don't want to have a negative image.
I got really good at doing a pretty good song and dance about impact and the efficacy of good work. That was a preface to presenting work to clients, right? And I always advocated for discovery in the beginning and research, and then executing against that, and at least defining the questions that I was then answering and presenting creative, that they had kind of crafted the questions with me. So it was kind of empowering them to feel like they had co-created it, even though I was just like getting them up to speed. I have a really good like branding presentation I do to explain like the difference between a logo and branding, and what a comprehensive branding system is and how it functions. And so a good chunk of what I do is like unpaid educational services for clients, but it makes getting good work out so much easier. Because like whenever you see like
send me that in written form.
So dude, I literally have sent it to people. I'm part of a Phoenix Designers a Phoenix Designers forum on Facebook, and I have sent over like how I put together logo presentations. I sent that over to a couple of people who've asked for it, so they can use it as a template to kind of like walk clients up to the point where they understand what you're doing. Because more often, like, it's all
Jason,
crayons. Yes.
Forget the comic book Kickstarter. You put that on Kickstarter, you'll be a millionaire,
dude.
And I'm only kind of joking.
I thought about doing like
your clients that their ideas are good.
That's like then again, you're managing your clients. You know what I mean? Like, you can't really do that. All you can do is educate and elevate their standard and their metric for success, so that good work can come out. And and explain to them, like, when they give you, I invite in samples of things that they like, and then I dissect that for them in a way they can understand, so they can put terms on what it is they're responding to in the work that they like, and then I can apply that to the things that I show them. I mean, it's a lot of hand holding, but it gets good work out the door.
It's interesting, because I think, honestly, a serious question is, like, you think a lot of designers are frustrated because they, it's like we all want to sort of be treated as the expert, but a lot of the job, I think, of a designer is education.
For sure.
Explaining, difficult.
But nowadays everybody's on like some time management app. Like, that's the shitty. That's the thing that really killed advertising, is there's no time to just ruminate and think about stuff. I love that line in Mad Men where Roger walks into Don's office and he's like, "It's hard for me to get used to the idea that most of what you do looks like you're doing nothing." And that really is kind of like it, like a lot of what I do is like research, like looking up, getting into the markets that the clients are going to live in, and see where the brand opportunities for brand equity are, as long as brand parity, as well as areas of distinction and all of that. And that's hard to bill a client for. Like, I'm going to give you 30 hours of research, 10 hours of work to a logo that's going to cost you a chunk of change, when you can go on Fiverr and get a logo for $30. It's just
not valued.
What's that?
Thinking is not valued.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like when you take your car to the shop and you need like new engine mounts, right? They're $8 parts, but it's going to cost you like $600 because they have to remove the engine to get that $8 part in there. So it's a lot of labor. It somehow doesn't translate to creativity, especially when you have websites and places saying that they can give you, we can do your brand for $8 or $30 or whatever. And a lot of them don't see the difference between that $5 crapped out logo and the one that you spent a month crafting into a comprehensive branding system. And so I just explain the difference to people, and it's time that I won't get back. Like, I'm not going to get paid for it, but I would rather do that so I can get good work out there. But I'm doing less and less branding these days. It's been, actually, I'm currently working with 2 clients, but it's probably been 3 years since I've actively been in the ad world. I just walked away three years ago. This company, this company had like most of my time locked up, and I just told them I was going to take a month off, and then I kind of never came back.
So what are you doing now?
Lucrative world of independent comic book publishing.
Oh yeah, exactly. Because
real money.
Yeah. Like I can show you the Ferrari out back, right? Those guys who are always like, "Let me show you my fancy ass car." Yeah.
You were working on this comic. It's been years now.
It's been a decade. Yeah. So I started in 2009. I had like 5 or 6. I got let go from McFarlane in 2008. And that summer I went out with sample pages, and I think I had 6 or 7 sample pages of a luchador comic in there that was really got responded to well by editors and people I was talking to. So what was it? I think Dark Horse really wanted to see like what that would look like as a full issue. So they were very interested at the time. And so I fleshed out the full issue, took it back the next year. And I think Dark Horse passed on it maybe post Comic-Con. So then I had to wait another year before I kind of shopped it around. And then I got a lot of encouragement from a lot of cool people telling me that it was good, but they didn't have room for it in their schedule. So they were like, you should definitely self-publish this. So I just put my money where my mouth is, and I printed it out. First issue came out in 2011. I was in Diamond at first, though, so I lost some time being in Diamond and then not being in Diamond. I had to like re-scramble and kind of figure out how that was going to distribute. So, and then some other shit happened in my life. Like I broke my wrist at one point in time. I got sick for a while. Like it's been a long time.
Well, it's one of the things I love about the comic, and Sal and I are both designers. Tom works in agency. There are comics out there that you can tell are made by designers, and it's some of the first like Hickman comics, because he was a visual designer before he was the comic book writer that we all know. And your comic has such an amazing design aesthetic, and not just from like page layouts and character designs and that kind of stuff, but the entire graphic design process all the way down to printing. I mean, you are pretty I won't say pretty, I mean you're very, very detail oriented whenever it comes to the printing process and paper stock. With this being an independent comic, was it a little bit easier for you to exert total control on all of those choices, like paper and printing and all of it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I did a book with Top Cow last year, and I had ideas about paper and size and stuff, and they have a thing that they do. So like we do this thing, I luckily got to wrestle at least the design away from them, so I got to design the entire book and then give a PDF over to Image, and then Image printed the whole thing. But as far as like size and paper stock and stuff, they were like, there's a thing we do and we're going to do it, which I found out. And I think a lot of companies are like that. And for me, it was like I really wanted the comic, because it happens in the 60s, to look and feel and even smell like an old comic book. So I knew it had to be offset lithography on newsprint, so it would be absorption print rather than evaporative, so the ink is in the paper, not on the paper. And you can smell the ink coming off. You can feel the tooth of the paper. I wanted to feel like a relic of a time that never really existed. It's this alternate history Mexico, 1960s. And so I go to great lengths to kind of have the blacks overprint the color. You can see that you can see that the blacks aren't quite 100%. You can see the color gain underneath it. And there's all the picking that happens on the plates aren't quite, solid, and they've shifted a little bit. And it's funny because like my printer really thought there were mistakes and was trying to fix them the first time, and then he called me in and was like, "Hey man, there's like all this kind of going on," and I'm like, "Oh no,
you made it look intentionally imperfect." It's how you wish the comics in the 1960s had been printed, because this is way beyond the quality that those were printed at. But this is how you wish that they had been printed.
I mean, if I could have gone, like a web press with actual, steel plates like the way they used to, I definitely would have done that. But no, I mean, like I would have had to talk a newspaper into letting me do that. And they probably don't even do web press. But so I think it's still web press, but it's not quite the same plate process. It's because newspaper printing is like flexo. It's not offset. Like the plate actually makes contact with the paper, which is why when the plates slip, there's really a lot of room for wiggle and stuff, because it's getting hit every time. And so it's just a little bit removed from that. But I just couldn't do it digitally, because then you get the fuser code. Even if I did uncoated paper, there'd be the fuser code on there, and you would get it would feel slick and shitty. So I just wanted an experience. Like I wanted to give people an entire experience more than I just wanted to tell them a story. Something you can't get on screen, something you kind of have to hold the comic book for.
Now, go ahead, Sal.
Oh, I was just going to say, I love this line, this page that I'm showing right now. From it in the beginning, we have this sort of warning, this caution at the bottom of it. And I love the line you write in here. You say, "You're about to enter a world not completely unlike that which you know, but still a place that may assail your sense of antiquity nonetheless." That is a beautiful line, my friend. That is terrific.
Thank you.
It really does sort of give you that sense of what I think you're trying to accomplish, of like hearkening back to something that is so good and it never really existed, only in your memory. You know what I mean? As a kid of the 70s and the 80s, like I have these, fond memories that I also kind of know never really existed.
What's the Stephen Colbert book? Looking at America through the looking through rose-colored glasses at the America that never wasn't.
Yeah, that's kind of like, so I wanted this world to be an extension of like the Lucha Libre, the Mexico you saw in the old Lucha Libre movies, where everything was just super swanky and super modern. Like everyone had the best, most modern appliances and cars and everything, and that's just not the way Mexico was in the '60s. So, but I wanted to make this that world where Lucha Libre is also the most important thing. But so that a line like that and that kind of warning page comes from a couple of things. One, it gives me the opportunity to write like Stan Lee, because I wrote this entire book like it was written in the 60s, just with like operatic kind of bombast that like people just don't like. Being able to write a line like the purveyor of purloined promises is just, it feels good. It feels like comic books to me. But also I wanted to.
You can't do that if you're doing like a modern, like slick sort of superhero comic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, people would just recoil at it. It's like watching opera, right? Like everyone talked kind of colloquially, you wouldn't accept it as opera. It's like I don't like opera in English. It seems weird because I can understand the actual meaning of the word, and I'm not just swept up in the emotion. So this is my attempt to kind of obfuscate the language enough that you can just accept the emotionality of what's happening and not get caught up in like, yeah, exactly. Like no one said Excelsior ever, but it seemed okay in comics back then. But it's John Opdike says that all great art has a need within it to confess its artifice. And I'm trying to do that just up front, like in the curated palette, the fact that like everything only has like 12 colors in it, 3 of which are used on the hero. So I'm building an entire world on 9 colors, and the way the Silver Age style of drawing and the kind of exaggerated modernity of this Mexico City, all of which is just a confession of artifice. It just lets you know this is a story. So don't get caught up in realism. Like don't compare this to anything. Don't evaluate it in fidelity to source material. Just evaluate it as the story that I'm telling you.
When you work with such a limited color palette like that, do you feel like that actually unleashes a lot of creativity?
I love movement. I love like when I could do whatever I wanted to hem myself in as much as possible. Yeah. So I would have to think my way out of a corner, like because those are always the best like ads that I would do, or the best graphic design I would do, is when people were like giving me impossible things, or they're telling me things like I want 2 peaks but no valley and all that shit. And I got to figure out what the fuck that means as far as a mark goes, And I mean, just being able to problem solve within these ridiculous confines always brings out creativity. I think that computer coloring and modern comic making allows you to be so fantastical or realistic that you can do anything and people do everything and it looks like nothing. So I think in limiting myself to like techniques you could only do in the 60s comic books, like there's no blends, there's no there's no transparencies, like everything is just solid color that goes down, and it's these 9 colors get used for the entire book, 3 of which or another 3 get used on my hero. How do I make that work to give you a diverse looking cityscape and have it not just look all monochromatic, right? Like how can I
have it look like a 1960s comic? I would go on press. Back in, when I would do press checks, which is kind of a lost art. But I remember talking to press operators, and this is as computer graphics and a lot of Photoshop techniques are coming, into the print world. And he'd say, yeah, all these designers, they think that if it works there, and he's pointing at the computer screen, that it works there, and he's pointing at the printing press, and he's like, and it doesn't, and they don't know. I came up doing mechanical key lines.
Oh yeah, if you haven't burned yourself on a waxer, you shouldn't do a press check, right? Like if you don't know how to shoot a Velox on a stat camera, or how to calculate out your type area, you're like, talk about column inches to a designer these days. Like, we bought 60 column inches.
Yeah, I showed a new designer a line spec, like a type spec, and they're like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah, I was trying to remember the type formula. Like, remember you would have like a word count, and you would have to order your type, and you're like, "Well, I know my word count and my type area." So there's a formula that would give you what point size over what leading size would actually fill that area, and you would have to order it from a type house, get it back as a PMT, wax it onto your mechanical artboard, and then build your ads like that. Yeah, I think that this. What's it called? The generation, and I hate to be like the old man about this. It's part of like, speaking of Kickstarter, so my exit strategy might be teaching one of these days. And what I really want to teach is kind of design theory, like actual like design philosophy more than anything, because the world got so modern, and schools and institutions were so pressured to get people just a skill set that was valid the day they got out of the school, right? Like, I just need to get you a diploma where you have a skill set where you can actually just get a job and not necessarily teach you how to think about anything. So these kids are learning how to do so much, but they don't know why they're doing any of it. And I think that, like, kind of like when you were cutting amber lith and when you were inking with your rapidographs and French curves, like, being that intimate with the word just built an understanding of it in a way that kids just don't have. And that some of them get it on the job or they'll have like mentors, but dude, I'm like the last generation that learned how to wax down to PMT or use a stat camera.
Sure.
And I'm, 46.
I'm
I'm
a letter plate,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I still have my see-through type guide. I still have my eye loop. I've got my proportion guide. I was doing comic strip stuff the other day where I was actually, I got some graphic border tape. I was actually, taping down my graphic borders and cutting the miters on the corners so they made perfect 90-degree angles and stuff. I still like that sort of thing, and it's a more intimate process with the artwork and more deliberate too. Like, you can white out over ink, and you can cut a plate and put it in there if you need to cover something up. But when you have the thought that, like, oh, the ink is going down, like it's going to be there kind of forever. I also tattoo, so I have an idea of like doing stuff that you can't take back, right? So I'm gonna have to think about it more than just like, oh, I can just Command Z that.
So do you think this work with a younger audience, with newer audience to comics? Quality is quality. The good work is good work, and it's going to be interpreted that way. Do you feel like it's noticed? Do you feel like it's accepted as being a kind of a throwback style of comics, or are people just kind of like consume it?
I think yes. I think people like my age or older love it. They love the feel of old comic books. Like I can see people go to look at it, and I can see them rub their thumbs on the edges as they're reading it, or pull it close to their face to get a hit of that ink off of there. And I think that kids, like somewhere maybe like 25, less than that, they kind of appreciate it because they have they've grown up in this like digital sterile world that they like kind of tactile things. But there is an age group that's maybe like between 30 and 40 that just could not give two shits about it. Like they just don't. Like I had a kid trying to tell me that my printer was bad. He's like, look at this, man. You can see the color behind the black. I'm like, yeah, that's the fucking point. And he couldn't understand that was the fucking point. He was like, looked at me like, what do you mean that's the point? I'm like, yeah, it's like, it's supposed to look like an old comic book. He had no frame of reference for it at all because it wasn't retro enough for him, and nor was it part of his own history.
It's like you see those dollar bins over there?
Yeah, exactly.
Go diving.
Yeah, so there is a weird kind of gap in generations. Like my generation older loves it, and then people like 25, 30-ish kind of and younger love it. But like 30 to 40, those dudes who just like grew up on Image, like those were their first comic books, were like Image comic books. So all they've ever seen is like slick, hyper detailed stuff and all that computer coloring and stuff. And honestly, I just can't convert them. Like, my banner behind me is a giant image of Mano, like, and you can see that kind of like overprinting, and you can see that looks like an old comic book. If someone just takes notice of it, it's like it's a flag to see who salutes. If someone takes notice of it and comes over and picks my book up, they're generally going to buy like at least an issue. But there are plenty of people who just doesn't even register. Like they didn't even see that it was an image. They just keep on walking. So, and I know that even if I got them to stop and come over, they would just be like, okay, and go about their day. So I can't convert the unconverted. I can't make them have an appreciation for it. And I know my audience, and a lot of my younger audience is also like Latinx kids, and even older Latinx, like grandmas who grew up on Lucha Libre movies, and then these kids who grew up with their grandmas watching the Lucha Libre movies, like they just have an affection for these characters and the subject matter. So it's a weird kind of cross section of people that I appeal to, but there definitely is a gap in people that just will never see it, and I just nothing can be for everybody, and I'm okay with that.
I think though there's like with podcasts especially there's a like we were talking about design, there's an education process. Like I think the more you talk about it, the more and we've talked about these guys before, but the cartoonist kayfabe guys do this great job. This seems like a perfect book for them to you need to get them to talk.
They're friends of mine, and they've shown my comics on their show before. I just posted on their Facebook page about it and let people know that the trade paperback is happening because they have been shown. Like a lot of people who saw it at first when issue 6 came out, I sent Jim and Ed all 6 of them, and they opened it up on their show and talked about it for a minute. So a lot of people from there kind of know me. So when I posted on like the webpage, people dug it.
There's an amazing thing that happens when you talk about it. Like reading it is one thing, but when you talk about it with the passion and the intelligence that you obviously have for this work and what you put into it, it all of a sudden becomes like, oh wow, there's this cool factor about it that I didn't realize. There's something, the work and heart that you've put into this, obviously, and what you're trying to accomplish is something that I think a lot of people can easily dismiss or just not get in any way. So the more you talk about it, I think is the better, because
all I'm trying to do is get people to check it out, because I find that you can sense the love on a thing. Like you can tell when someone loves the thing that they made, and if you just pick it up or check it out, you'll sense the love in it, and it'll resonate with you or it won't. But that's a hard thing to get across, like in an ad or just a post or whatever. So most of what I'm doing on podcasts and all the kind of press tour I'm doing right now is just like encouraging people to go check out the Kickstarter. Like there's a video on there, you can see pages, you can thumb through it, you can get a pretty good sense of what it is, and if it resonates with you, then you'll probably dig it, and if it doesn't, then you probably won't. So, like for me, it's just awareness campaign. Like I just want to get this in front of as many people. Like, hey, check this out. Like that's my entire sales pitch at a convention too. It's like I just say hi to people, and if they come up to my table, I'm like, "Oh, feel free to check them out. Let me if you have questions."
Yeah.
I don't really need to hard sell it, but a lot of people will open the book up and see kind of how distinct it is, and then they have questions. They're like, "Whoa, what is this color palette? What's going on here? Like, what's the story about?" Like, and those. And then I get to have these kind of one-on-one conversations. Thank you guys for having me on a podcast where I can actually tell more than one person at a time my story. But yeah, I mean, it's just an emotional resonance thing with people, right? Like either you feel it or you don't, and the book is so much.
I think a lot of people. I mean, I think a lot of people want to connect with something, but they don't necessarily have the information, to do so. Sometimes, like
there's a lot of static out there.
Well,
yeah.
There's a lot to wade through. There's a lot of things to try and choose from, that kind of thing. But also, it's like I think people love a story like yours, where it's this isn't just another comic book. You know what I mean? Like this is something that you're creating for a specific reason. Like there are very deep-seated reasons and heartfelt emotions behind what you're trying to do, and that's a really important thing for art. That I think in the comic book world is because we're so hung up on like the big two and superhero comics and Batman and Superman and Spider-Man and all that shit. Not that it's shit, but like,
my comic is a superhero comic. Like I like to tell people it's a comic book ass comic, like for sure. And it does things you can only do in a comic book. And I take advantage of the medium. This isn't my movie pitch. This isn't my TV show pitch. This is the comic book that I made because I fucking love comic books and I fucking love superhero comic books. But it is also extremely Latinx themed, and it is, but extremely authentic. But I think that in its specificity of subject matter, it gains a universality, right? Like because it's so specific in the style of the subject matter, that the substance of it becomes universal. It's like when you tell a joke, it's always better if you like name people you're talking about. You're like, "Oh, my coworker Karen," or whatever. Like you have to. It's funnier when you're super specific about the small details of your situation, and then it gains a universality. And I think all storytelling is like that, with the exception of perhaps the visuals, right? Like the more kind of abbreviated you get, the more universal those become. But when you're talking about like the subject matter, I think the specificity of culture and authenticity has to be there, because authenticity is kind of the new currency of the static age, I guess. That Chris was just talking about how there's so much static out there. It's like if it's authentic, people will gravitate towards it. If it's a money grab, people will just repel it instantly. Like we can all smell a money grab coming, 10 miles away. We can see when Marvel brown washes some character, right? Like, oh, we're going to make this guy Latino, and he'll say a Spanish word every 5 words or whatever, and there's your diversity. And you're like, well, is it really? Like, or did you just kind of brown wash your previous character and kind of think that you were appeasing us? So, but then you have guys who like authentically will put people of color in their comics, and then you can see the difference between the money grab version of that and the authentic version of that.
Do you think there's also like a balance there that you have to sort of enact? Because if it's like Luchador is sort of a very there's so much culture, there's so much history, there's so many things that go into that. Can that also sort of be a hard sell to people that while it's authentic, can it be too authentic? or can it, you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, I could be deliberately opaque with it, or I could be like deliberately opaque or pedantic, or really get into the weeds about the specificity, I suppose, and kind of focus on those sorts of things. But I think that the story overall is kind of universal. It's just a guy who made a Faustian bargain, and this is just the world that he lives in. But I would rather get the lucha libre right and have it appeal to the people who need the lucha libre to be right, and then have the gravity of their enthusiasm pull in people who are only kind of tacitly interested in it, than for me to anglify it in a way that would have broader appeal and then never appeal to the people who like authentic lucha libre, but never being Anglo enough to fully appeal to like a broader, 4-quadrant audience. So I would rather get it
to be like bad.
Like what? I'm sorry, you broke up.
You don't want it to be like bad barbecue. Whenever you go to a barbecue joint and it's all just like watered down for the masses, and you're like, yeah, this is not good. That's a terrible metaphor, but that's kind of what I first thought of.
Here's my metaphor for it. I didn't want to make the Chipotle of luchador comics, right?
Fair.
I would rather make the Filibertos of lucha libre comics, because like, yeah, dude, Filibertos is great, authentic Mexican food, and Mexicans love it. I am one of them. White people will come enjoy it too, and those people who need Chipotle can only handle that kind of level of spice. Then they're going to stay in fucking Chipotle. They can have their Chipotle. There's one in every fucking corner. But if it's late night and you want something authentic, come to Philly Bees. Check it out. It's going to be delicious. Try the carne asada. It won't disappoint. So yeah, I didn't want to be that, because part of why I created the comic was exactly that reason, is that you would see lucha libre or Mexican culture and even Latinx culture broadly in American movies, and they always get it fucking wrong. And it's always dusty and brown looking, and it's always like, the American audience has like fetishized both the violence and poverty parts of Mexico in a way that is damaging to our culture. So I wanted to present something that expressed our beauty, because as a minority in America, I have to fight my fight, but I also have to express our beauty, because I have to exemplify what it is I'm fucking fighting for. And so here was like my love letter to Latino culture, to lucha libre, to old Silver Age comics, and graphic design, and all of that rolled into one. And like, here's the thing that is important to me in this pure form, that your guys are getting the fucking Chipotle version of. So like, check it out or don't. But yeah, this was a pushback against seeing like luchadors in American movies who were like hitmen or bodyguards and didn't fucking wrestle, and they were always kind of oafish and dumb, and like the kind of underlying sentiment was like, look at this dumb fucking guy, when those guys are my fucking heroes. Like, how dare they do that, right? So this is my pushback on fucking sepia tone, brown, dirty Mexico you see in every cartel movie, when like it's reduced Mexicans down to fucking cartel violence in burritos.
Jason, we're from Chicago, so you don't have to explain modern culture fetishizing violence and poverty of an area.
Exactly, right? Yeah, it's disrespectful, and so this is my small little pushback against.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Against all that bullshit. So, and it's all I can do is just do it right, right? And I easily could have called it like El Revenjo, and but I wanted to call it Mano del Destino, because if you can't get past 4 Spanish fucking words, this comic isn't going to be for you.
Well, my Spanish is terrible. That is, I butchered your opening, so
no, it's fine.
Maybe I'm just not your target market. No, I love it. One of the things that we haven't talked about with the Kickstarter, with the trade paperback production of this, is that it's going to be a flip book, and so you're going to present it in English, and then you can flip it over and have it available in Spanish. One of the things I was going to ask, because I'm flipping through here, you are great at using a lot of sound effects. So does a word like wham have a Spanish equivalent, or is wham bilingual?
The sound effects are going to remain in how they are, and I don't think there might be like a grab, so that'll get changed to the Spanish word for grab. Like a
okay, I was wondering how you handle that with
in the sorry, I had to scratch myself. Sorry, I'm trying to like not block the camera while something bit me. Sorry. What is going to happen in the English version of it? The ones the 6 issues that are already out. There's a little bit of Spanish, like there's the occasional Spanish word that happens in there, like he'll say like what the hell or whatever in Spanish. Those are going to be English in the Spanish version, so I'm just going to flip flop them. So there's going to be a tiny bit of English in the Spanish version.
Funny.
Yeah, so that's why the only kind of thing. And then I have gone and looked through the sound effects, and I think the only one is like grab. I think is the only sound effects that I use that has to get changed into Spanish, but everything else is
like
just
a word,
wham or blam or slam or whatever. Whip, thud, yeah, like I think flabunk. That's universal.
Oh, speaking of sound effects, one of the greatest sound effects ever in comics is thwip, And you have one of the greatest comic book themed tattoos I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't know if I can actually show it. So I've got Thwip tattooed on the inside of that finger, and then I've got a spider web tattooed on the inside of that finger. So when I do the Spider-Man thing, you can see Thwip and the spider web coming out. Yeah.
Is that not an awesome tat?
Spider-Man is the reason that I do comic books. So I when I wanted to get a comic book tattoo, it was going to be something Spider-Man for sure. I mean, I have since I've got Lamano's eye on my hand. But this is my comic book hand now. But yeah, the Thwip and the spider web. I've shown other people that like get jealous. Like fuck, I should have thought of that. Thwip is probably the best sound effect ever. Mm-hmm. Snicked is maybe a close second, but Thwip is so universal. I would love to, like, if I ever got to do a Spider-Man comic, like this is part of my, if I ever got a job at Marvel and they offered me a Spider-Man book, I would just call it Thwip. That would just be the title of the book. Yep, just Thwip. Be fantastic.
That's awesome.
But when I talk to like the big companies like that, I never talk about their A-list characters. Like I don't want to do Spider-Man or Batman or any of that shit, because all you can do is fuck those up. I'm always like, give me like C and D level characters, because all I can do is make that better. Like I got a Buona Beast pitch ready to go if DC ever calls. I've got a Sunfire pitch ready to go.
It's the old Jack Kirby, Jimmy Olsen move.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't give me your best book. Give me your worst book, and I'll show you what else. I mean, it's kind of that, but I mean, even Todd McFarlane started with like, Coyote backup, Scorpio Rose stuff. Like all you can do is make that better. You can't fuck that up.
I mean, that was Remender. I mean, what he was doing, like Brother Voodoo, whenever he went over to Marvel. So
yeah, because those guys aren't tied up in like tie-ins and crossover bullshit. You know what I mean? You give me Sunfire, I'm going to give you 6 solid issues of Sunfire fighting fucking kaiju in the 60s. Like the Sunfire pitch I have happened between Giant Size X-Men annual number. Oh, sorry, it's what is it, X-Men number like? Fuck, I can't remember, like 10 or 11, where he tries to blow up the White House, and then the next time you see him in the X-Men, he's going to be an X-Man for Giant Size, right? There's like, he's a villain who like had been duped by his uncle, kind of sees the error of his ways, and goes like, fuck, I got to get out of here. And then he shows up and he's going to be a hero. And so I just want to tell that story between like, I was a villain to I'm a hero, and how he kind of decides to be that guy. And honestly, yeah, like if Marvel calls and wants to do that shit, I'm all about that Sunfire comic, because you can't fuck up a Sunfire comic, But but give me Spider. I mean, I would have to have a much better reputation to do something. If I wanted to, the books I'm going to do now for anybody, I want to do whatever the fuck I want to do. I don't want to get roped into like, it's got to start here and end here and feature these characters, but you can't use these guys. Fuck all of that nonsense, man. The editorial's ruining comics.
How do you really feel?
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like, I think that, we've gone from comics being like an artist medium to a writer's medium to now it's an editorial medium. And even now it's becoming a brand manager's medium, right? It's just about like making it look like the fucking movie. I mean, like the 2 biggest entities in our industry are only tacitly involved in comic books. And one of them might be walking away from it. Like, what does that say for our industry when like 75% of the material that comes out is by 2 groups that don't give a shit about what they're putting out? Really, they're just trying to like not go broke and maintain their IP. So, I mean, but because of that, they keep the lights on in the comic shops that allow something like the Mano del Destino to shine. So I can't dispute their right to exist. All I can do is do better shit because I'm not tethered to that corporate fucking juggernaut. Or try to do better shit, I guess. Sorry, that was a bit of a tirade. I feel like we got off subject.
I don't know about that Thwip series coming anytime soon after that comment, but
yeah. It's fine. No one's gonna hunt this down. Maybe they will. I don't know. That'd be great. I'd be a good position to be in. It's like they announced my Thwip series, and they're like, "Hey, did you hear what Gonzo said on fucking Around Comics like 10 years ago?" Like I'll be like, 50 years old. Dude, I'm 46. Really, I'm gonna get a break in Marvel or DC at this point in my life.
Which is exactly why you should.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
So the Kickstarter. How much time we have left?
So because my audience is so niche, I ran the Kickstarter for 60 days because I knew it was going to be me basically hand selling comics to people out in the world. And this demographic I'm kind of like trying to serve, like this underserved demographic of Latinx comic fans, has been neglected by the mainstream for so long that their ears aren't even out for messaging. Like they're not on CPR, they're not listening to podcasts. Like they're so far kind of removed from the comic game that I know I have to go to them, and they're never going to come find me. So I'm giving myself 60 days. I believe I've got 45 or 50 days, maybe. But I think 45 days. I think it's less than 40 now.
Yeah, yeah. Cause, you say that about Latinx comics, and it's like I think whenever you say that, everyone's like, Love and Rockets? Question
Yeah,
mark?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, they're great, but
They're
that-
awesome. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But that's the thing too, is like people who read, like what's it called, Fantagraphics type books, right? They've been conditioned. Like I love Gary Groff, but he's fucking beat into them that capes and cowls are dumb and don't do it, right? So people who engage with Love and Rockets may or may not like my comic book, but here's the kind of kicker of that: is the fucking Hernandez brothers love my comic book. They're friends of mine. I see them at shows all the time. We do Latin comic festivals all the time. They're there. They dig my shit. Like the day I met them, they were like around my booth checking it out before I walked up. I'm like, hey man, we dig your shit. So
That's not intimidating.
oh, the dude, I didn't know what the fuck. Like I was trying, like, dude, I rounded the corner, like there's like it was all three of them, right? So they were all around my booth just checking it out, and I'm like, hey guys, what's up? Yeah, just like said that. And in my head, dude, and I know this is the dumbest thing to think. In my head, I thought I had done something to offend them, like something that like one of my characters overlapped with their characters, or I used a word they had used, or something. I thought they were going to have some problem with me, like, hey man, like X, Y, or Z, and I was just going to have to pack my shit up and leave because when the Hernandez brothers have a problem with you at a small show, you got to go, like they're not kicking them out. So I was fully expecting like, oh, I guess they get kicked out of the show. I don't know what happened, but they were like, they dug my stuff. And yeah, it's they're cool dudes, man. I spent a lot of time with them. And yeah, they're all about fucking, like they're all about the things that their company kind of denounces, which is kind of ironic. But their comic itself is a synthesis of all of those influences kind of put into what they do. But yeah, I would say they are the high watermark of all Latinx comics, though.
Sure, absolutely. Well, we need to get wrapped up here. So real quick, the kind of last word on the Kickstarter. How much time we have left on it? Where to find it? And just a quick wrap up on that. And I've already backed it, so I'm looking forward to it.
I hope it happens. So
Yeah.
we're doing well. Just go to Kickstarter and search Mano del Destino. I'm on their projects we love kind of category. So if you go just to Kickstarter, if you go to what's it called, the comics section, I should be within one of those little tabs that has projects we love. But yeah, just check out Mano del Destino. Just search for it on the site. There is a URL, but it's really long for me to give out to people. Kickstarter.
The video is really well done and really comprehensive about the entire project and the process. So if you have any questions, I'd say just watch the video. It runs everything down really, really well.
Yeah, absolutely. It also has all of my social media at the very last title card. There has all of my social medias on there. Follow it, and even if it's not for you, if you could just share it, just because this project is so niche, I'm just trying to get the word out for people. So, for $15 you can get just a PDF. If you don't want a 400-page book at your house, I understand that. But for $35 you get the entire book. And there's also some doodle levels and other things. A lot of stuff is sold out right now. Like my higher tier level stuff is kind of selling out. Like the mask right now, you can only get that custom made, handmade, professional quality mask. You can only get that with the custom art piece, with commission. So unfortunately, it's the highest tiers, but that's the only way to get that mask. Those sold out way faster than I thought they would. But
that's awesome.
Yeah. So there's some good shit in there. But just buy the book if you're so inclined. It's $35 for 400 pages. You
can do that.
Tell me a better deal than that. So, yeah, and also I'm not making a cent on this thing. I'm not paying my page rate. I'm not trying to make a huge profit on it. I literally just did the math on what it costs to print them, what my my per unit cost would be on that, broke that down, added all my tax on that, and then added on Kickstarter, and then added on my shipping, which is why that goal amount is so very specific, because that's the fucking number, right there. That's what I need to make, not a dollar more. If I can't, but it's also shows people I'm banking on myself. I could have taken this to. I've had offers from other bigger companies to put it out, right? But they don't want to serve this audience. They don't want to do the bilingual version. They don't want to do it on newsprint. They just want to do the things that they do and put it out in the world. And it's gonna, again, it's anglifying it in a way that I'm not comfortable with. So fuck it, man. I'm banking on myself here. I'm asking, if I don't make the entire goal, then I don't get to do it. But I feel like there's an audience enough to support this. We're 40% there, right now, or close to 40% there. Still have way more than half the campaign to go. So just get the word out, even if it's not something you want to partake in. But if it is something you want to partake in, I think I've got some good tiers there.
That's awesome, man. I hope I'm confident it's gonna be kicked, and I'm looking forward to reading it in its entirety in its paper form. So I have various issues.
I done kicked them out.
Put an MT5 kit on there. That's so dope. Is it in honor of my 5 hair I got going on today?
Sal does love his stingers. All right. Well, Jason Gonzalez, Gonzo, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Really looking forward to this. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate the help, guys. You guys take it easy.
Try and cover as much as possible because I think you add so much. Like listening to you talk about the book and the passion you have for it and the craftsmanship that goes into it, I think can only help like get it, get people interested in it. So please,
I'm trying. Yeah, I'm doing my press tour now. Some podcasts are coming out next week. I'm also going to try to get on YouTube. So if you go to Jay Gonzo Art on YouTube, I think next week I'm going to do some like live drawing, maybe auction off the things that I'm drawing and answer some questions because I've had a lot of people kind of ask, like, want to do like a Q&A thing, but I'm trying to set it for like the best time possible. So because I'm on, Arizona time, it's kind of a weird time zone. But so follow me on YouTube on Jay Gonzo Art, and I will be on there this week drawing and answering questions. I'm gonna try to get out as much as I possibly can too. So thank you.
It's awesome.
All right, guys.
All right. Thanks, bud. Have a good one.
Yeah.
So there you go.
cool.
Yeah, Jason's a great guy. A longtime listener of the show, and he's been working on that book for a decade now, and you can tell the absolute labor of love of his. So quality stuff.
Listening to him talk about it was, just so interesting, and the work that he puts into it and what he's trying to accomplish with it is really just, I think people love that kind of stuff. Like we were talking about sort of like universal. Like what are things that we can all, no matter where we come from or what race we are or whatever, like the universal idea of like authenticity and passion. Like that's what we're all looking for. We just want people to be honest and authentic and their real selves, and not like feel like they have some sort of agenda or hidden thing. Or it's like just if you're passionately being who you are and doing something and putting it out in the world, I think people respond to that.
And then whenever you combine that with a level of talent, that's when something special happens.
Yeah. But that's why I was like, man, you really like you sent us the book. He sent us the book to look at, and I'll be honest, I didn't have the time. I forgot about it a little bit, and I didn't have the time to really study it that much, and so I didn't have the appreciation for it that now I have. Like after listening to him talk about it, it's like, oh wow, this is really interesting. Like what he's trying to do here is really an interesting thing, and that's the beautiful thing about podcasts is like listening to someone, the ability to listen to someone talk about what they're trying to do, and not in the way of like breaking down the story or explaining it to people, but just like
expressing their passion for it.
Yeah, man, that's powerful shit. Like I love that stuff. I love that with stuff that I don't even understand, or like that I have no connection to. Like I can still connect to somebody that does something that I don't get. Like perfect example, like a dude at my gym today, I found out, I had no idea he's like a trained chef, and like sitting there and listening to him talk about cooking is like, that's fucking, it's just like it gives you a whole different appreciation for something, you know what I mean, that I don't, like I barbecue, but I'm not a chef. I don't know, like, you, Chris, have spent some time, doing some really great cooking, but it's like, even if it's nothing I'm ever going to do, I can still relate to like the passion of it.
You can have an appreciation for it.
Yeah. And that's powerful stuff. So that's what I'm like, dude, you have to get on as many podcasts as you possibly can and talk about this, because that's really what's going to connect. Because it's a to be honest about it, it's a niche kind of thing. It's
yes.
So, but what he is trying to do is something that everybody can appreciate. And
and something that he mentioned, and it's something that we've been talking about since forever, since there was the diversity push in comics, and it's always something that when Sal and I talk about it off camera, off mic, something that we kind of shy away from. I'm talking about the show because we in no way want to come off sounding like we are in any way sympathizing with the Comicsgate perspective. You know what I'm, but there is, and I didn't know the term for it, but you can tell when something is being brown washed. And that's, I'd never heard of things being brown washed. When you can feel an inauthentic when something is inauthentic, and that.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. I'll be honest with you, as a person that is what the hell, we got two Toms.
What? And they both look tired.
I heard Comicsgate and my computer just shut down.
It's hard. It's a hard subject because and it's like me as middle-aged white guy. I'm coming at it from the worst. The worst place.
I'm half Mexican. Half my family is in Texas, southern Texas. I grew up going to Texas, every summer of my life, spending my life around Mexican culture, eating Mexican food, and I understand the ideas behind what he's sort of talking about in the Latinx brown washing, and I get that. At the same time, I grew up in suburban Chicagoland in a very kind of conventionally white life. You know what I mean? And I don't look, it's like I don't, most people thought I was Greek or Italian. So it's not like I grew up, other than my last name, which I definitely dealt with a certain amount of racism because of my last name growing up. But the reality is, like, I probably identify more white and Caucasian than I do Mexican, or at least as much. So it's a weird thing. It's an odd thing for me, honestly, these conversations and this sort of the when that stuff is brought up, because on the one hand, I completely empathize and understand it and appreciate it, but on the other hand, it's like, why do you not want to? Why do you not want to share the beauties of your culture with other people?
I think that was kind of Jason's point, is that he's like, if it's just going to be like a passing, thing that really isn't authentic, he went out and made his comic that he's like, I'm going to go make the authentic deal.
And I appreciate that, but it's like, on some level, it's sort of like this indignant thing of take it or leave it.
Yeah, sure.
And that's sort of where I always kind of go back to Bruce Lee about this, which is a weird,
with who?
Bruce Lee.
Oh, Bruce Lee. Okay.
Like Bruce Lee's idea of sort of like, I'm going to show you the beauty of Chinese culture. I'm going to share it. I'm going to make you appreciate the beauty of my culture by being extraordinary and being inclusive and trying to, he fought to teach everyone. Like, that was a very, martial arts at that time, he's talked about it, he's written about it. Like, he was not supposed to teach white people Kung Fu. But he was like, no, fuck that. I'm going to do what I want to do because I want people to appreciate the beauty of our culture, and they're not going to do that if we're closed off. And so that's where I sort of run into the problem of, like, I understand trying to be authentic, but it almost seems like it gets to the point of, like, this sort of indignation of, fuck you, if you can't accept 100% of what I do because I'm black or brown or Asian or whatever I am, then I don't need you, or I don't want you. And it's almost, and it just seems like self-destructive in some ways. And I don't know, like I said, I'm not trying to speak for anyone else. I'm not trying to tell anyone how they should live or how they should do things or anything like that. I'm just explaining my own personal sort of like weird kind of experience, because I wasn't Mexican enough to be accepted by Mexicans, and I wasn't white enough to be accepted by white people. Yeah, I always lived in this sort of in between thing, where I sort of had to be my own kind of person and not really identify or really 100% gravitate towards either side of it, because it's this bizarre world. Like, I'm not enough of either side of it, and so I just find it strange sometimes of like, how do you expect people to accept and understand and empathize with you if you're closed off?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it will never happen, because that's
it's just like, I get what he's doing. I get like the pride and the what he's trying to accomplish, and I appreciate it 100%. But I also feel like on some level your pride is getting in your way. And pride's not a good thing. No matter, like, pride is not beneficial in any way.
Yeah.
I 100% believe that. I think pride is not a good thing, no matter what. Like not that you cannot be proud, but I think pride fucks with people and makes people make really bad decisions and do things that are harmful to them.
Goes before a fall.
Yeah, I just know how I feel, man. I don't know.
Tom's like, I knew someone was going to say it. It was probably going to be Chris.
Yeah. I knew that was coming.
We are going to let Tom go to bed because he looks like he's about ready to.
Very tired. Guys,
Yeah, you look very sleepy, Tom.
very sleepy.
The kids are running you. They're running you down, man. Are you out, Tom?
I'm out.
Okay. I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead. We'll fit it. We'll wrap up the show here. Book of the Monthish club. It's not really a club.
Oh yeah, wait?
Is it your pick, Chris?
I think it's mine because Tom had done Tiananmen, right?
Yep.
So I picked one out. It's available on the Hoopla as well as any fine comic book purveyor or online. It's a blind spot in mine that I wanted to read and just didn't pick it up. You guys probably have already read it, but I did not read Sean Murphy's Batman White Knight.
I did read it. The first volume you're talking about. Yeah?
Yep, I'm gonna because I've not read any of them, and I was just like, that I just missed it whenever it came out, and I think I maybe got an issue and didn't get the collected version. But Batman White Knight by Sean Murphy, and
Cool.
like I said, it's available on Hoopla and Amazon. Your local comic shop probably has a trade paperback of it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
I'm really interested. I did read it when it came out, but I'm really interested to read it again and talk to you guys about it because it's an interesting look. There's a lot of things, like socially that I think it kind of can be discussed with that.
Yeah,
book.
it sounds interesting, and I like Sean Murphy's work a lot as a writer and an artist.
I'm honestly shocked that book didn't sort of kick off more discussion about it. I was kind of surprised that there wasn't more talk about that book, considering how much, sort of like politically, I think there is in that book.
Cool.
Even the title alone, is an interesting, thing. And yeah, so I've been very surprised that book didn't create more conversation.
Cool. Well, maybe that conversation starts now.
That's right, goddammit.
All right, so pick up your copy of Batman White Knight. We'll try and get that read and talked about here in the next month. So here, a couple episodes from now, hopefully. In the meantime,
in between time,
we're going to be everywhere. And
And
Brown comics. And Tom's gone.
I love the time just disappeared. Just out.
He's gonna be asleep before the end of the song. He's walking up the stairs now, getting his pajamas on. Head's on the pillow, and he's gone.
Comics.